First of all, I want to let you know that as we get going here, as we get ready to speak with our distinguished guest, we're going to be talking to here, Will Johnson. We have a ton of resources for you. Those resources, as I share my screen, let me show you what we've got. We've got a web page that talks about everything that's going on. By the way, all this is free for you to use. Grow Global is open to all brokers, all agents. And what we're looking to do is help agents come together and all of us help and support each other and grow our business. We work locally, but we build globally. And today, we've got Will Johnson on. He's going to be helping you boost your income. He's helped tons of agents do this, but you're going to discover how contractor partnerships can elevate your business. And it's a big deal. We're going to come back to who Will is here in just a second, but we've got a web page that talks about our events, why Grow Global, different resources you can use, coaching, healthcare, things like that. On top of that, we've got a Facebook page that you can join, and we encourage you to join that. It's got a lot of great information that we talk about and things like that. We also have a YouTube page. Now, we record all of our masterminds that we do on Monday masterminds. In fact, we've got 49 videos and counting right now, a whole year's worth of library that you can get into, things you can learn about. One of our real popular ones was the NAR settlement. All of those, you can join those on the YouTube page, and these links are going to be in the chat box, just so you know. And we also have an Instagram page. 220 of you following us on the Instagram page that talks about what we've got going on. But let's get back and talk about Will. Let's get ready to get Will started here. So Will Johnson's out of Nashville, Tennessee. He's been in real estate now for 10 years. But just so you know, he was featured in the Wall Street Journal, and he's also written articles, full articles for Business Insider. If you know who Business Insider is, they have over 1 million readers a month. So he knows what he's doing, right? If those people are coming to him. He also spoke at the Tom Ferry Summit, which if you don't know who Tom Ferry is, where have you been? You living under a rock as a realtor? No, he's a huge coach for real estate agents, but he was also a speaker there. So you're going to want to pay attention to what Will has to say. He's going to show you how to put more money in your pocket. And raise your hand out there if you're a realtor and you want more money in your pocket. Go ahead. Let's see who wants it. Jacob Bell out of Boston does. Kingsley does. Kim. All right. Kevin Duggan. That's it. Will, it is all yours, brother. Take it away. By the way, guys, if you have questions for Will, this is very interactive. If you have questions for Will, you can put in the chat box and I'll stop Will and read it. Or you can do the little reaction thing and raise your hand and we can call on you and you can ask it yourself and you can unmute and do that. So whichever way you want to go. With that, Will, take it away.
Yeah, so thanks for the great introduction. I appreciate that. Super excited to be here today and share a little knowledge and put some more money in some of the agents' pockets here. So yeah, it started about probably 5 years ago. I was at a Tom Ferry conference and I've always worked with quite a few investors, right? Like that's kind of my area is working with investors, either helping them develop land, flip properties, commercial apartment complexes, you name it. That's, I mean, still sell regular residential real estate, but that's an area that's really excited me. Kind of built a team around being able to help those people. But I didn't come from an investment background. I mean, I've owned some rental properties and have flipped some properties personally, but didn't really understand the full scope from the business perspective. I think growing up from the family that I grew up in, you know, nobody really had money. So I just didn't understand all of the different avenues that you could make money as a real estate agent. So I remember being at this conference and talking with some higher level agents. You know, I think at the time I was maybe selling, you know, 6 million or something in a year. And these guys were selling, you know, 50 to 100 million a year. And so went out to lunch with them, and on the walk there, you know, they were asking me about some deals that I was doing and I was telling them about it. And they were like, okay, well, what are you making off of this? And so I was telling them, well, you know, I'm getting 3% commission. And they were like, well, yeah, but what other monies are you making off of that? And I was like, I didn't even understand the question, like that unconscious incompetence, like I had no idea. And so I remember that conversation because they started talking about, well, like, are you making, you know, any money off of bringing the money person to the table? Are you making any money off of, you know, bringing the builder to the table? Are you making any money as kind of a project manager? And they were going over, you know, 5 different ways that they were making money off of the same deal. And I was like, no, that's not really for me. Like, I'm just happy to help and use my friendships and relationships to help put the deal together. And over the next couple of years, that's what I did, right? I was just, like if there was a way that I could help, I would help, and there wasn't any extra charge. It was just, to put the deal together. And then over time, there were times where maybe I was bringing the money. Say a friend had just closed on a house and had, $500,000 of equity, and they would loan the money to somebody else. Well, this investor would get, 50% equity in a project off of the money that I just introduced to them, and I was making nothing off of that. Or I would bring a contractor in to help somebody flip a house, and they would, be a one-stop shop, and they would go in and tell them what to do, and go in and do the complete renovation. And then after the renovation was done, be like, well, I knew I said I was going to use you as my agent, and we had a listing agreement, but I'm going to cancel that listing agreement, and I'm going to go with my buddy Joe to list the house now that the house is renovated. So I kept kind of getting cut out, and it was causing a little bit of frustration in adding a lot of value, but not really getting anything out of it. And so I called some of those buddies back and was like, hey, I'm a little bit more interested now in some of these other sides that you're making money. Can you talk to me about it? So one of those sides was the contractor side. So I contacted one of the builders I was working with, and he was helping to do some flips and stuff for clients of mine. And I was like, hey, what are your thoughts about like something that's not on the Alta statement, something that's not part of the commission? Like if I bring you a piece of business, say there's land, right? And a client of mine wants to build on that land. Would you give me 3% commission off of the build? And he was like, of course I would do that. And I was like, wow, that was kind of easy. And so then I said, well, this house that you just flipped, he decided to go with a different agent. So like you did well on it. And, the client, you added an extra $40,000-$50,000 to value in the property beyond what the renovations cost. He's winning, but like I got nothing out of the time that I put into that. And he was like, well, he goes, the house already closed. And he goes, the guy already paid me, but he goes, you're right. And the renovation was like $30,000. And he's like, I'm going to meet you tomorrow. I'm going to give you a check for $900 for sending me that piece of business. And I was like, wow, that was kind of easy. And so I started looking at some other things. So I talked to another builder friend of mine who also does renovations. We've probably got $10 million worth of business going on right that'll sell this year through him. He does all the building for one of the bigger developers I work with. And so he approached me and he's like, hey, I know you've got a lot of projects going on. How do I get in on that? And I'm like, well, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm a little bit financially disincentivized to use you because I've got an agreement with another guy where he'll give me 3% on any business that I give him. And he's like, what if I give you 5%? And I'm like, on anything? Is there a cap on that? And he's like, no, there's no cap. And I was like, well, it's interesting that you bring that up. So he lives about 20 minutes away from a city that an opportunity came up that I would have never had a side on. So long story short, there's an agent in Kentucky. So I live in Tennessee. There's an agent in Kentucky that reached out and said, hey, I heard you do commercial, but I don't really do commercial. So I'm going to refer this client out to you. So I talked to the client. He owns like a university here, but there's no land to sell. He was just wanting to pick my brain to see would it be better to build dorm rooms or to build townhomes, but there's nothing really to sell. So in the past, I would have spent an hour on a Zoom call just giving advice for free and not gotten anything out of it. But now, because of these relationships that I have with contractors and with builders, I said, well, you live in Florida. I live here in Tennessee. Do you have any builders or any general contractors to build these 32 townhomes for you? And he's like, I don't. He goes, I would really like your recommendation, or if you have a referral or something. So this is an $18 million project. So I called up my builder friend that lives 20 minutes away that I have the 5% agreement with. And I was like, does that 5% include, you know, for this 32 townhome project? He goes, absolutely. He goes, I make on average 20%, a builder fee on all my projects. He goes, if I make 15% instead of 20%, and I give you 5% for, bringing me a job, he goes, I'm still making 15% I wouldn't have had. So on that $18 million project, when that's finished, I'll get a $900,000 check just for referring that builder business on something I would have never gotten anything on in the past. So now when we have painters that reach out to us, or we have any of these ancillary services, for if a client needs repairs done to close a deal, or if clients need anything, because they come to us, and we are feeding all of these different industries business. And before, we were just doing it for free. We might get something from a lender, maybe, or a title company. We might get some sort of an agreement with them where they would give us something. But I think in the past, with all of these other ancillary services, specifically on the construction side, we were just kind of doing that work for free. We were doing it. It was part of our job. And it can be a pretty substantial source of income that we're just leaving on the table. Same thing with the money side. I mean, I worked out a deal Friday with a builder that wanted to take on another project that was stretched a little thin. And he was like, hey, do you have somebody? He goes, I really don't want to go through like regular banks. Do you have somebody? Well, I knew of somebody that had just recently sold a piece of property, pretty nice piece of property in Oregon. So I reached out to him, and I'm like, hey, I know that you just, made a decent chunk. Do you want to invest $1 million of that money that you just made? I've got somebody that's interested in borrowing it and would give you, some hard money rates on that, a pretty aggressive interest rate, because there's enough meat on the bone in this project. And he's like, sure. So I set up a Zoom call. I let the buyer know, the person who would be loaning the money, because I'm not involved in the buy or sell of this project at all, this particular project. He just reached out to me. He knows that I've got some connections, and he said, do you know of anybody that's got some money willing to lend it? So I said, yeah, but it's going to be, any monies that I bring in to you is going to be 2 points on top of whatever monies, whatever they're charging. So on that, it was $1 million loan. So, I mean, I got a check for $20,000 just for connecting the dots between those two people. So there's just a whole different world that I'm starting to realize out there, of being able to help people, and being a connector. And from connecting these people, because we all know good plumbers, or we all know good, AC people, or we know good whatever the people are on our list. And they're benefiting that. I mean, in some ways we're benefiting, right? We're benefiting in referring people, good quality contractors that we feel like the work will be done well, but we're doing free advertising for them. And with this, I mean, they're paying for advertising that has already worked for them. So it's not like I'm making any money off of something, for impressions, or for potential income, or for marketing. Like, they're not writing a check to me until the job is already done, and they're very happy to do it. So now when new people come to us, I mean, the bigger that you get, the more calls you start receiving, hey, I got somebody from a pest control company recently, and they're like, hey, we'd really like to do your termite inspections. Okay, well, the other termite company is giving us, 5%. So is, is that something that you're open to? Yeah, 100%. So, yeah, it's just been a great source, in addition to making commissions as a real estate agent, to be able to bring in extra income.
So Will, real quick, I can hear all the residential agents' heads exploding on here. with isn't that a RESPA violation or something like that? Let's talk about that just so they can process that in their prefrontal cortex.
Yeah, so there's nothing that goes on the Ulta statement. Um, it's more like, a marketing agreement that I have, but it's not anything that's, hey, you can only choose this person or you have to use this person. So, yeah, so for these, some of these I've actually got one of them I got an LLC set up, and another one I've got an LLC set up. So like for the builders, for instance, right? The two builders that I have different LLCs set up. So the money for those we end up just keeping within the LLC. Like one of them is matching whatever that he's paying me. So like the 900,000 one, he's throwing in 900,000 as well. We've got a lot that we're looking at buying in a very nice neighborhood to turn that 1.8 million, the 900,000 I contributed, the 900,000 he's going to contribute into that LLC and convert that 1.8, build a very nice house, turn it into 5 million. But yeah, I mean, we checked with our title company. I checked with a real estate attorney. Like what we're doing is not a RESPA violation.
And Will, these are commercial deals or residential deals that you're discussing?
Both.
Both.
So like I had a deal, like, so there was a client, the deal had already closed, right? He bought a house that needed a $400,000 renovation. So this deal is closed. I'm taking off my real estate agent hat. He approached me. He's like, "Hey, I need somebody to help renovate this house. I want to completely redo it down to the studs. Do you have anybody that you'd recommend?" Yeah. So I called up. Um, you know, he actually interviewed both the guy that gives the 3% um, marketing monies for anything, and the other guy does 5%. Interviewed both of them. Chose the guy that does 5%. And so yeah, so I'll be getting, I guess in 6 weeks, that project should be finished. A $30,000 check from the builder, and that comes out of his money. I mean, that comes out of his profit that he was making on and they understand. I mean, instead of them making 20% profit off of the build, they're making 15%, or instead of 20%, the other one makes 17%, but they're okay with that.
Well, they can also price it into their calculations when they're trying to win the bid, right?
Well, actually, no. I mean, they could, and I wouldn't know about it, but most of them they're actually taking it out of their share. But they could. I mean, like one of them charges an extra 3% anyways on all of their deals in case there's a credit card that's used to make payment instead of cash. So he doesn't like to ask for anything extra, so he just puts that extra 3% in. So he looks at what I'm doing the same. So sometimes he'll pay the credit card bill, or the credit card fee. Sometimes it's paying me, but that 3% is already worked into all of his deals, regardless. But the one that gives 5%, it's not extra that's added on. It's out of his 20% fee that he would make.
I love it. We're talking with Will Johnson out of Nashville, and what he's teaching is how agents can bring in extra revenue by simply being a connector, by knowing people, by networking, and by the business that you normally just refer out, actually find a way to monetize that. So you've got a question, Will, from Melinda Kessler. And she says, how does he do this as far as getting paid? Does he have contracts or et cetera? How's he doing? You're not doing these off a handshake, are you? Are you, Will?
Right,
I don't know.
right.
Maybe down south, that's how it's done.
Well, with some of the smaller ones, like if a painter comes to us, and I'm just using that as an example, and sometimes paint can be a little bit bigger jobs. Like I've got a paint job that's, I mean, it's like a 1,500 square foot house. It'll be, um, I mean, it's going to be it'll be right at 13 grand on that one. So like the first time that I'm using, I mean, but I just let them know, hey, like you'll be taken off of our list and you won't be used anymore. But for some of the bigger ones, like once it gets to be um like over a $50,000 check that we're talking about, then yes, we get contracts involved, we get attorneys involved, because part of it, you can have the best intentions going into something. For example, like the renovations, right? As they're taking draws on the renovations, do you get paid on the draws? Do you get paid at the very end? Do you get paid some upfront just for, getting them the job before they start? So to keep hurt feelings from happening, or expectations from getting that. Like, I'll give you an example. So the builder that we're doing the 5% with, his original thought when we first had the conversation was it was going to be 5% of his profits. And I was like, no, it's 5% off the top, not 5% of your profits, because I don't want to be micromanaging how well you're doing a project. And if you're overspending or doing whatever, like, that's not how it works. So it's a set fee, 5%, of whatever the total cost of the project is. And he was fine with that. He was like, oh, okay. I didn't know. So getting this stuff in writing, but for, smaller ones, what I consider to be smaller ones, I'm not writing up a contract, and you could have something simple done for some of the smaller ones, but for the bigger jobs that are $50,000 plus, yes, I get a contract on those, or I've got something already set up with that, like something that covers all of the deals with that particular person. But for the smaller ones, I typically don't. But I've never been burnt on one, because they know that the business won't come. And 5% of a project for most of these people is a pretty, or even 3% is a pretty small number. For I mean, you look at what some of these people spend in marketing that are running businesses, and we're great feeders for them, and they know that if they're doing that, that they're getting much more business, that they're getting exclusive rights for me to send them business. So yeah.
Are you finding, Will, that that 3 to 5% is kind of the sweet spot as far as what is acceptable out there in the market, or does it vary from marketplace to marketplace? Like, is it different in Columbus, Ohio than it is in Nashville, or are you finding that to be nationwide?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I've asked some people in other states that are doing this, and I would say that that would be the sweet spot. I know some people that have tried charging more, and you start to get a little bit of a little bit of a kickback. And I know some people that are getting more. I know one agent in Las Vegas getting close to 10%. Yeah. So, but it's the same thing. Like, if you're charging points on, like, helping to find the hard money piece. I mean, I know people that are getting, 3 or 4%, but I would say your sweet spot there is probably in the, 1.5 to 2% range for that. So, but yeah, I've not had one person give any resistance to that whatsoever.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, you are bringing them the direct business, and they're not paying you unless they get the deal. So it's
Yeah.
not really costing them anything because they are getting the business. It's not like you're charging them up front to send them leads. You're sending them business.
Yeah, and I mean, we do that with other real estate agents. It's pretty rare that an agent will give another agent a deal. And I mean, we charge 25, 30%, to do that. Now, I understand that their margins aren't the same as what ours are, but I think Rob probably could comment a little bit more on, what marketing costs are for, certain business, whether it's a printing business or other types of business. Um, but to pay 3% is not a really large number.
I love it. So we're talking with Will Johnson. Who else has some questions up? Those were great questions, Belinda and Luana. I think you were thinking the same thing everyone else was about the RESPA issue with that, and that sets us aside. And of course, as we know, everybody in here is in a different state. A lot of different states here across the country. So absolutely, always check with your broker on things when you're working this through, and make sure that you're doing it properly for your particular state. But if you have questions, go ahead and you can put in the chat box, or if somebody wants to unmute, or maybe you have an idea and you want to throw it out there. So one thing that I
I think,
liked you were talking about, Will, was the land, finding land for builders. You're not just getting paid the commission on selling that land to the builder, you're getting paid to sell the land and then every unit when he divides it out. Is that correct?
yeah. So in the past, if I had, say, an individual homeowner that was wanting to buy, maybe he was going to build $1 million house on a $200,000 piece of land. It was like, oh, I mean, 6 grand isn't bad, to help find the land, but it's like, I'd much rather have the 30,000, for them. And I think it helps to keep a conflict of interest right? Because you almost want to steer them more towards buying the $1 million house that's already built rather than buying the $200,000 piece of land and then spending 800,000 to build. But yeah, I mean, the builders are perfectly fine with that. And a lot of times people will ask for your recommendation. Like, do you have a recommendation for a builder, or do you have, somebody that you would recommend to build this? And I would just give those names for free before. And it just didn't make sense. But I think the biggest thing on all of this is that none of this goes on, the Alta statements, none of this is going on any of those documents. So that was the advice that I got from the real estate attorney that I talked to. He's like, as long as this isn't showing up on the Alta statements and it's taking place, outside of the transaction, then what you're doing is running a separate business other than the real estate business.
Got it. You have a question from Melinda Kessler. She's unmuted. Go ahead, Melinda. Let's hear your question.
I have a question about that. With being considered like a separate business, is there some type of document that you have drawn up saying your affiliation with whatever? So you're showing like you are the real estate agent and you're affiliated with this company that's helping. I mean, anything like that, because we are agents and having a separate business.
Are you doing an ABA, Bill? Affiliate business arrangements? You doing any of that stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't, but I see what you're saying. So like say I've got a client and they're doing a renovation that's taking place and I'm getting some money from this renovator. Am I disclosing that to the client? Is that what you're asking? Or is there some sort of actual form that goes into that?
Both of those questions, both.
Yeah. Yeah. So, the answer is no, there's not a separate form that I'm using with that. I mean, I could use that. I mean, I haven't found the need to do that at this point.
Is there liability legally wise? When you spoke to your real estate attorney?
Well, and I can answer that a little bit because of my broker background and owning real estate companies with RESPA and everything. If you're in a transaction in a real estate where you have a buyer and a seller and you're the agent, then you have to have the disclosures of affiliated business arrangements. And anything that's on the HUD agreement or a vendor on the HUD agreement, if you're getting compensated, you have to disclose that. That's RESPA, right? What he's talking about is things outside of the agreement. Once you close that deal, then outside, if you have additional business or things going on that's not dealing with that particular closing, RESPA doesn't count at that point. It's a different deal. You're now, because real estate agents can have multiple businesses. So you can be a builder if you want to. You can be a mortgage person if you want to. And if you're in the deal, you have to disclose. But if it's a deal between you and a client only, and it's not dealing with closing on a house or property in real estate, you don't have to disclose that at that point.
So Rob, a past client comes to you and wants to put an addition on their house, you can refer somebody out and you can collect a fee off of the cost of that job
all day long, because that's not dealing with the closing. Correct.
Okay. I just want to know about full disclosure because we don't want to be sued over some silly stuff.
No, none of us want to get sued.
Great question, Stacy 2 weeks ago and asked her about this because I have this big investor that wants to start doing 2 to 3 deals every couple of months. And I'm referring this builder that is great and worked on my house. And I asked her like, hey, can I get compensated for that? So I just asked her that last week. And she's like, I usually refer people and never get paid. I'm like, yeah, well, I'm thinking about referring and getting paid because he's going to be getting a lot of business from me.
Yeah. To me, I mean, yeah, if you basically have a builder and you plug them into a subdivision or you plug them into, somebody else that's giving them, 10 deals a year to say, hey, I've got this, client or this agent over here that's got these lots, for you not to get something out of that, you're on a silver platter handing them business.
That's what I thought. That's why I called to ask Stacy, because I thought surely she'd know as many as people as she refers out.
That's great. Great question on that, Melinda. So Nate Gom has a question for you, Will. He wants to know, what would you advise those that do not have a large investor base to start building this system?
Yeah. So, okay. So if I'm getting started off in real estate, say it's my first year. First, I will start with, I wouldn't use anybody, regardless of the money, if I don't trust that they're going to do great work, right? So the first step is going to be building out your network of people that you trust that will do a good job. And so how do you find those out? So if you've got, maybe you could ask other, agents within the network or other agents, that are local to the area. You can see reviews that have done and just sit down, have coffee, just see how their value systems aligned. And I mean, anytime that you're trying out a new contractor, you really don't know until after they've done the first job to see how they do. But you can just be very upfront about it. And so you can, if you've used somebody in the past, say you've used a handyman who, went in, tore down a wall and then painted a room. And just to say, hey, what do you typically give? Just ask the questions. What do you typically give real estate agents for them sending you business? Or what are you offering real estate agents for them to send you business? I'm hearing that typical is 3 to 5%. Where do you fall in that range? And just ask the question. And see where the conversation goes from there. So, yeah, I mean, for us to be giving marketing that's already worked for the client, and just to say, look, there's no upfront cost, but if I send you somebody and you do the job, what I'm seeing is 3 to 5%. Are you good with that? And, see what they have to say. And it's powerful. Like, even once you get one person, say it's a plumber, or say could be a roofer, could be anything. So once you get one person, could be your window guy, could be flooring guy, could be, anybody, that, hey, I've got contractors that are giving, 3 to 5% for me sending them business. What are your thoughts on that? We're now seeing that. So yeah, it's not as hard of a conversation as you would think to have with people. But the advice that I would give is, one, you want to find quality first, and find people that you get along with, people that you enjoy doing business with, that align with your values and whatnot, people that you can trust. And then, second, for the, do the 3 to 5%. Personally, I have never had that arrangement with somebody that I've not used first to make sure that they can do a good job. But yeah.
Multiple streams of cash flow is the name of the game. I love it, Will. Great stuff. Great questions people have. We're speaking with Will Johnson out of Nashville, Tennessee, and he's developed a program where he's pulling in multiple streams of cash flow, whereas an agent in the past, he was just handing out names of contractors and not getting compensated on it. And now he's found a way in a sweet spot between 3 to 5% where of the entire job, where you can pull in some cash for referring that out. For those of you who have, think about this, if you have a database of clients, what a great way to touch your past clients by letting them know that you want to be all things real estate all the time. And whether they're looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, or know somebody who's looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, maybe they have some work they want done around the house, and that you have a list of contractors that you have personally vetted that you can refer to them. And then on the back end of that, you can have a cash flow stream coming in off that. I love it, Will. Great stuff. Who's
Something
got a
else that
question?
we're
Linda
doing.
Kessler.
Go ahead.
Ask another seasoned agent. Oh, so she's answering Nate's question. She's saying a way to build that list is to ask other seasoned agents for referrals on contractors they use and trust.
Yep.
If you don't have any. It's a great recommendation, Melinda.
Something else that we're doing that I think is a little bit outside the box, that's been a great value add for past clients, is, there's so much equity in these homes now. So we're seeing people that may sell a house and they may have $100,000, $200,000, $400,000 of cash after selling the property. And, they're like, what do we do with this? There's a certain amount that may go to capital gains, but a lot of it, they just get to keep. So we've taken a group of some of our past clients. So now when somebody sells a house and they're not putting all that money into the new house, we've got sort of a real estate investment trust. So people that have, say, $200,000 and they're wanting to invest. So I've got a contractor now, builder, that so we've taken 10 different clients. So we've got almost $4 million now that's in this kind of piggy bank. So for these clients, what we do is we say, hey, we've got a piece of land. So the contractor, he goes and he pays cash for the land or the property that he wants to renovate. So there's no loan on it. So these people that are in this real estate investment trust, they get first position on this piece of land. So he may go buy the property. Let's say it's a renovation. He buys the house for $300,000. So he'll pay cash for the house. Maybe it's a $100,000 renovation. So he'll take $100,000 out of this real estate investment trust and give them pretty significant interest, between 10 to 12% APR for the amount of time that he's taken this money out. And this money is secured for the people in this real estate investment trust. This money is secured because they've got first position on the land. And so it's been a great way for me, one, to a value add for these clients after I've already sold them a house, to get their money working for them in a very secure manner at a much higher interest rate. It's been great to be able to build relationships with this builder, right? Because if I'm funding the money from past clients from this real estate investment trust that's taking place, I'm getting the listings that I wouldn't have gotten otherwise, post flips. And it's just a great way for me to stay in contact with those past clients as well. Just to say, hey, how's your money doing that you've got invested in this? And they're super happy, right? Like, it's a value proposition that I have, that others wouldn't typically have. And we've gotten tons of referrals out of that.
So, Will, Stacy and I, I'll give you an example for Stacy and I. We have made some of our investors multi-millionaires by bringing them sweetheart deals on real estate. And our fee has always been, we've gotten paid the 3% for putting the deal together, right? How would you approach an investor if you're going to bring them in on a, it's either a buy and hold or it's a fix and flip and things like that? What would be your script you would say to them? Like, I'm bringing you this deal, I'm getting my 3%, but I also want cut in on the back end. What's your script on that?
Yeah. So I think the key is competition, right? So if you've only got one builder or one investor that you're working with, it's a little bit more challenging to have some of those conversations. But I've got multiple different investors. So I'll give you another example. So I've got like a $3.5 million piece of land that the person decided not to sell, was going to build 17 short-term rental units on it, but now we've shifted gears and it's going to be 5 stories. Beautiful deal. So I approached the builder and I was like, look, if I can get you to be the builder on this deal, to build this, I mean, it would be a total of 80 units, 80 condo units. If I can get you to be the builder on this deal, instead of doing like a 3% or 5%, this is a builder I've never worked with before, to say, what about an equity piece? Like, can I get a unit of this project? Because there's so much meat on the bone. So say you as an agent say, look, I'm going to bring you this piece of land. I'm going to help you get it rezoned from residential to commercial to where you can build XYZ on it, or a piece of land that can be developed. Maybe that's not on market or something. And if I bring this sweetheart deal to you, can I also have an equity position on the back end? And I mean, that's a great way to do it. And I've had very little resistance from that. So on bigger deals, there's more room for an equity piece instead of just the commission.
That's what I was thinking about. Yeah. So the bigger the deal, the more room there is to squeeze you in, and what would be a little slice to you is a tiny slice or a big slice to you is a tiny slice to them, right?
Yeah. Because and something I didn't wrap my head around early in the real estate career is you are in a sense a project manager. Like, if you're bringing maybe the land to the deal, right? You're connecting the dots of the person who has the land to the person who has the money to the person that's going to build it, and you're doing all of that for free. Like, people don't do that. If you didn't have a real estate hat on, would you do that for free? Like, people get paid big money for connecting those dots in any industry, right? Um, so, there should be some equity piece that you get by connecting the people to get the project done in the first place. Like, I've got a project I'm working on. I won't name the city. There's where we're looking at building apartments down there. So for that deal, I brought the person that owns the land. The land isn't even on the market. Like, I called the person and said, hey, this is a piece of land. Would you be open to getting an equity piece if we were to build some apartments on there? And he was like, yeah, the land's just sitting there. I don't want to go through the trouble. So I've got a builder that specialized in building apartments. We went down there and looked at it. And then I've got a friend of mine that is a CFO of the second largest owner of apartment complexes in the country, lives in Nashville. He came down and he's like, this is the type of apartments you'd have to build. This is the bedroom baths. This is the community amenities for this area to get maximum rents. And then, I've got the money person. So there's value in bringing all of those people together, all of those different specialties. And so in that, project, when that thing is built out, I'll have a 5% equity position in addition to the commissions on that project.
Love it. Love it. So I got a lot of residential agents on this that start thinking, man, I don't have access to all this big commercial type stuff. How would they do it on an individual fix and flip deal? So they've got a house that's a sweetheart deal for a fix and flip. They want to feed to one of their investors that they have. How would they work that? What kind of script would they use on that, Will?
Yeah, to say, so I think it's easier to have those conversations with a general contractor versus an individual painter, an individual flooring guy, an individual. Now, there are some jobs that are smaller that you can, do those with. And, there's $15,000 flooring jobs out there, or there's, $30,000 paint jobs, especially if they're painting the inside and the outside. But yeah, for me, even my home inspection guy, like the home inspection guy, we don't get 3 or 5% from, but like, he does printed mugs, that he drops off at the house for anybody that he's done that has our like team logo and our team, everything on it is kind of a little like, if I'm sending your business and I'm helping you grow, you've got to do something to help me grow. And so as a business person, having that conversation with, if you're in charge of, or if they're counting on you to bring the people to help them do the renovation, generally a general contractor will have their own people, but if not, if they're having you manage the flip, which if you're newer and don't have experience with that, I highly do not recommend doing that. But yeah, if they just need, some windows put in, or they just need a roof put on. My roof guy, he's got no problem giving 5% to any roofing jobs that I was, going to bring to them. Now, I think you run into a little bit of a line, right? If it's, if these renovations are needed to be done to sell, like if they're, it's not maybe a flip, but it's being done, part of the repair proposal. I think at that point you would need to disclose, what's going on with that. But if it's just a fix and flip, then you may do a little bit of the legwork on your own, just ask, okay, say that they're putting a new roof and a new AC to flip the house, or their new roof, new AC, paint and windows. Just dialing up some people and just saying, hey, I'm hearing that this can be done in the industry. What are your thoughts on that? Are you open to that? And you'd be surprised by the reaction. I have not had one single person that's turned me down so far.
Well, have you ever done any buy and hold stuff, pulled an equity position on any buy and hold stuff?
Yep.
How does that look?
Yeah. So, I'm much bigger on getting a larger check later than having a check now. So if somebody is buying something, say I've helped them find something off market. It could be a property, it could be a piece of land. especially if I think that piece of land is going to be developed. Or we see a lot in Nashville here where stuff is getting rezoned, where the lot may not quite be big enough to be able to build two on it. So we'll get a survey done, and then we need to just get, like, I'm talking a small amount, 3-4 feet over on the neighbor's yard. And then all of a sudden now we can build two on that. Yeah, I mean, there's tons of stuff that buy and hold and get an equity position versus a commission all day long. And those are, you would need to get a contract on that, but those are very easy to do.
Love it.
I would
So
recommend too, in getting a good real estate attorney, to get some of these drawn up. I've got one in Nashville that I absolutely love. I've got a backup in Nashville if I ever need it. But I mean, the one that I've got is, I have 100% confidence in.
Love it. Love it. Melvin Burrell says, way out in LA, says, do your investors have security for the money held in the trust? So I think we maybe have talked about that, but go ahead and answer that for Melvin.
Yeah. So if we're talking about the real estate investment trust that we're going with past clients, I mean, they've got first position on that piece of land. So, if somebody buys it for $300,000 and they've got $100,000 invested into the renovation, I mean, all day long, even if we had to fire sale it, wholesale it, or whatever, their security, I don't know of a more secure investment that they've got than the deal that we've got set up. And it allows that flipper, who's got a fair amount of cash himself, but I mean, if all of the renovations are taken care of from this real estate investment trust, the cost to flip them is taken care of from that. I mean, it exponentially expands the number of units that he can flip at one time.
Yeah, my question was, you have you said about $4 million in a trust type account, and so you wait for a project to come. While the money's sitting there, is that money secured, or just sitting in just the trust only?
Yeah, I mean, so we've got it sitting in an escrow account. I mean, it's just sitting there.
Okay.
It's not
in an escrow account. Okay.
Yep.
Makes sense. Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I like it, Melvin. Always thinking, man. Always thinking. I see the wheels turning for Melvin. He's going to own half of California before this thing's over. So it is.
That's the goal.
He already owns half of it. If we had Melvin's money, we'd burn ours. That's the way that works out there. But so
I think even on the residential side, I mean, having conversations with your clients after they sell the house to say, hey, do you have any plans for investing the money that you've got? If I could get it invested into real estate, because I think sometimes as regular residential people, maybe you have a first-time home buyer that just sold their first house, right? And maybe they've got $50,000 in cash that they just made off of that. Now, some of them may need to pay off a car, or some of them may need to do something else with it, but some people do want to invest it, and they think, oh, I want to own a rental, or I want to do a flip, or I want to do whatever, but I don't have enough money saved up to be able to do that. So being able to say, hey, you don't need the whole thing. You can just go in partial, and I've got some people that, will give you a return on that money that know what they're doing. So the experience is no longer an obstacle. Them coming up with the total amount of money is no longer an obstacle. And I'm telling you, as an agent, when you get that money working for them and they're getting returns on that money, they become a walking billboard for you, like a referral machine that's sending people, because it shows that you care. Like, you care not just about the commission that you made on the house, but you care about their livelihood and putting their money to work. And it shows that you're a little bit at a different level than maybe some of the people that they've worked with in the past. And it's great even sitting down on listing appointments to say, look, I can not only help you out on the front end, but I may be able to help you out on the back end. Like, after we sell your house, I've got some ways that we can put your money to work. And that's part of what we do as agents is, they look at our value proposition, and they look at, how is this person different than all the other talking heads that are calling me on the phone?
I love it. I love it. Differentiating yourself in the marketplace, a huge piece, right? Having a unique selling proposition you bring to the table. That's great. So we're speaking with Will Johnson. We're going to be wrapping up with him here shortly. If you have your questions, don't be shy. If it's a question you have in your head it's a question someone else has in their head. They're just too afraid to ask. So don't be shy. If you have it, you can put it in the chat, or you can unmute yourself. Will, as some people are thinking here, whoop, I hear somebody unmute. Keith Jackson, go for it. Washington, D.C.
Yeah, I got a question. When I was in Houston, we started what we called like a little networking group. We had a painter, a lender, a mover, and so on. So we met, and our goal was just to have that little network where we exchange business between us. My question, it sounds like I left money on the table listening to you. So I'm trying to ask you, how would you go about doing that again, such that it is a income stream without setting these people, offending these people as you're getting started?
I'm gonna be honest with you. I mean, that promise for them to send business back, I don't know that I've, in my career, how much business has been sent to me from a moving company or sent to me from, it just doesn't happen, right? Like, we send them business maybe once in their lifetime, and they know so many people. This is, chances of that happening are pretty remote. And so I'm just like, if I'm sitting down having a conversation with them, I'm having that conversation. Like, look, I understand that this is the way that it's supposed to be set up, but this is also going to be very lopsided. Like, I am in a position to send you way more pieces of business than what you are to send me. In my career, I mean, have you ever been sent business from, a painter, a mover, a flooring guy? No. I mean, I can tell you already, it hasn't happened. So they're saying that to get you to work for them for free.
Gotcha.
Right? Like, you're out there marketing them and sending them business for free. So yeah, I mean, I'm just upfront with people. Like, if we're going to be doing business together, there are people out there that will give me 3 to 5% of a job. If you're not, then I'm financially disincentivized to work with you. You are at a competitive disadvantage versus other people in your profession if you're not open to doing that.
Perfect. That's the language I need.
Because because I'm looking for a win-win. And right now, the way that this is set up, you win and I don't. And you can tell me that you're the best flooring guy out there and that you'll be there on time and on budget and yada yada. But there's a lot of other guys that will do that that's the expectation. Like, that's not. And how does that benefit me if you show up on time and yes, I mean, they're a little bit happier, but I'm putting money in your pocket. Like, how are you putting money in my pocket if we're working together? So if that's not the case, like, tell me other win-wins that we could do. But this referral, like, I'll send you business, you send me business, that's not realistic.
Gotcha. Perfect. I appreciate that.
Worth the price of
I'm happy to
admission
help.
today, huh, Keith?
Yes, sir.
I love it. So Svetlana has a question, and she said you were meeting people, not discussing it over the phone, right? How are you handling that, Will?
For some of the bigger general contractors that I work that are doing some of these bigger renovations, I mean, those I've got personal relationships with. I mean, we're meeting up at this, we're going out to dinner together. Like, we're pretty tight. I mean, they're friends. Now, some of the smaller ones, I mean, it helps me because I get so many phone calls a day, just people wanting to do business. So some of these can be handled over the phone. The short answer to your question is I wouldn't feel like you have to handle it in person. But I mean, anybody that I'm going to be recommending as a contractor, especially if I'm looking at using them regularly, I prefer to meet them in person because you just get a little bit different feeling over the phone because people can sell, they're a bit. I mean, I got burnt bad on a personal flip by a guy that I was flipping a property myself, and the tile guy I hired, over the phone, he was like, I could tile a light bulb. And in my head, I'm thinking about somebody putting tile on a light bulb. I'm like, this guy's talented if he could do that. He did the worst tile job of any. I mean, I had to undo the whole thing and get somebody else to do it. And, it was like a waste of several $1,000s. And so I'm like, no, so, I mean, that's personal how you want to do that business. But if I'm recommending a contractor to a client, my preference is to meet them in person before sending somebody out to do work, but everybody has a different way.
Beautiful. I love it. Last question for Will. As we're waiting to see if somebody's got one, I want to remind everybody we have a webpage you can jump on, whygrowglobal.com. It's going to be talking about what we're doing next week. Next week on Monday, May 13th, you're going to have the master Stephanie Gillison talking about don't leave money on the table, how to dip your toe in commercial real estate. Are you tired of watching opportunities slip through your fingers? Ready to seize lucrative opportunities in commercial real estate? Join us on Monday, May 13th as commercial mega agent Stephanie Gillison shares insider tips and strategies to help you secure your financial future, even if you're not a commercial agent. This is a big deal. There's a way for you can make massive money off of referring out commercial deals. And Stephanie's going to tell you how to find them, how to do them. We also have a Facebook page. Don't forget to join that. We have a YouTube page where this video, this Zoom actually right now with these great scripts Will gave us is actually be posted on the YouTube page. If you're like, man, the way he said that was so awesome. I need to say it just like that. Well, you can go and copy Will. You can become the Will Johnson of your area and do that. We also have an Instagram page. And so with that, if anybody has a question, you can unmute. If not, anything, Will, you want to add here right at the end as we wrap up?
I just appreciate everybody's time and the opportunity to get to teach and, to help bring some insight. I just look at so many opportunities that are out there for us agents. And I think most of us have a heart to be able to help other people, and we can help and make it financially beneficial at the same time. It doesn't have to be exclusive.
Nothing wrong with monetizing relationships. It's about who you know, right? A lot of times not what you know. And so get out there, guys, network, get to know people. Everybody, a round of applause here for Will. Great job. Or unmute. Say thank you, Will. Great job. Great job. It looks like the crew is happy. Stacy Boss Moves Wiggins says,
Thank
awesome
you, Will.
call. That was awesome.
You're welcome.
Thank
Beautiful.
you.
Thank you, Will.
You're very welcome. Good
You're
luck to
a
you
rock
guys.
star, Will. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Everybody's
Thank you
really
so
grateful.
much.
Yeah, you did awesome, Will. That was great.